The child was being dragged into a van. She could have walked away. Instead, she attacked 3 armed men with nothing but a rock and her voice. Turned out, she'd just saved a Mafia boss's daughter. And he just decided she belongs to him now. The shot echo hadn't even faded when Rena Martinez knew she'd made the stupidest decision of her life. But it was too late to take it back now. 10 minutes earlier, she'd been walking her usual shortcut through Riverside Park, counting the $73 in tips from her shift at Quick Stop Groceries. $73 meant she could buy Leo new shoes and still have enough for this week's ramen. Maybe even the kind with real vegetables. Then she heard the crying. A child's voice, high and terrified, cut through the autumn darkness. Rena's first instinct was to keep walking. In this neighborhood, you didn't investigate sounds in the dark. You minded your business, got home safe, and lived to see tomorrow. But the voice sounded so young. Maybe 7 years old. Maybe younger. Rena's feet stopped moving before her brain could catch up. She crept toward the sound, staying low behind the park's overgrown bushes. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she peered through the branches. What she saw made her blood freeze. A black van sat idling near the tennis courts, headlights off. 3 men in dark suits surrounded a small girl with black curly hair and a torn pink dress. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old. One man gripped her arm so hard the girl's face twisted in pain. Another spoke rapidly into a phone, his voice tense and urgent. "We got her. Moving to the secondary location now. Boss wants this done clean." The girl sobbed, trying to pull away. "My papa will find you. He'll." The man yanked her forward, cutting off her words. "Your papa should have paid more attention, princess." Rena's hands shook as she fumbled for her phone. Dead battery. Of course. She hadn't charged it since yesterday. She should run. Find help. Call 911 from somewhere else. But in the seconds it would take her to find a phone, that van would disappear into the night with that little girl inside. And Rena had watched enough news to know what happened to kidnapped children. The statistics flashed through her mind, each one worse than the last. The man started pulling the girl toward the van's open door. Rena didn't think. She just moved. She grabbed the biggest rock she could find and hurled it at a parked sedan 20 feet away. The rock smashed through the driver's window, and immediately the car's alarm screamed into the night. Lights flashed. The sound shattered the silence, like breaking glass. What the hell? One of the men spun toward the noise. Rena didn't give them time to figure it out. She charged from the bushes, screaming at the top of her lungs. Fire. Somebody call 911. Fire in the park. People always responded to fire faster than help. She'd learned that in some long-ago safety seminar. The men froze for just a second, 1 second of pure confusion, and Rena used it. She barreled straight into the man holding the girl, slamming her shoulder into his chest with all 120 pounds of her weight. He stumbled. His grip loosened. "Run!" Rena screamed at the girl. "Run!" The girl didn't need to be told twice. She twisted free and sprinted toward the park entrance, her little legs pumping as fast as they could go. Then everything went to hell. The man Rena had hit grabbed her by the hair and slammed her against the van. Pain exploded across her back. She tasted blood. "Stupid bitch." He pulled his arm back. Rena saw the fist coming but couldn't move fast enough. It connected with her cheek, and the world tilted sideways. She hit the ground hard, her vision swimming with dark spots. Through the blur, she heard shouting. The men were arguing. The car alarm still wailed. Somewhere in the distance, she heard what might have been sirens. Or maybe that was just the ringing in her ears. "She's gone. The kid's gone. Forget the girl. We gotta move." "What about her?" A boot pressed against Rena's ribs. "Leave her. We were never here." The boot lifted. Doors slammed. The van's engine roared to life, and tires squealed against pavement. Then silence, except for that damn car alarm and Rena's ragged breathing. She lay on the cold ground, staring up at the stars through the tree branches. Every part of her body screamed in pain. Her face felt like it was on fire. Something warm and wet dripped down her chin, blood from her split lip. But the girl was gone. Safe. Running. Rena started to laugh, then immediately regretted it as her ribs protested. She'd done it. She'd actually done it. She'd saved that kid, and all it cost her was a black eye and probably a concussion. Worth it. Except, those men had looked professional. Their suits, their coordination, the way they spoke. This wasn't some random kidnapping. This was organized. Planned. And the girl had said, "My papa," like she expected him to tear the world apart looking for her. Rena's laugh died in her throat. What kind of little girl gets kidnapped by men in suits who talk about secondary locations and the boss? What had she just stumbled into? She didn't know it yet, but in a few hours, Damiano Costa would learn that his daughter Isabella had narrowly escaped a carefully orchestrated ambush. And when he found out who had saved her, everything would change. For both of them. Rena closed her eyes and waited for the spinning to stop, unaware that across the city, the most dangerous man in New York was about to learn her name. Rena woke up to the sound of engines idling outside her window. Multiple engines. She cracked one eye open, the other was swollen shut, and immediately regretted existing. Every muscle in her body felt like it had been run through a meat grinder. Her face throbbed in time with her heartbeat. The digital clock on her nightstand blinked 6:47 a.m. She dragged herself out of bed, limping to the window. When she pulled back the curtain, her blood went cold. 3 black SUVs blocked the narrow street. They weren't trying to be subtle. They sat there like predators, tinted windows hiding whoever waited inside. A few neighbors peeked through their curtains, then quickly disappeared. Smart people. Rena's mind raced. Those men from last night. They'd found her. They were coming to finish what they started. She moved fast despite the pain, rushing to Leo's room. Her 13-year-old brother was still asleep, his headphones askew, phone clutched in his hand. He'd fallen asleep watching videos again. "Leo," she shook his shoulder. "Leo, wake up." He mumbled something and rolled over. "Leo, we need to." The apartment door exploded inward. Not unlocked, not knocked. Exploded. The frame splintered as the door crashed against the wall, and suddenly their tiny apartment was flooded with men in black suits. 6 of them. Maybe 7. All built like brick walls, all with guns visible under their jackets. And at the center of them stood a man who made the others look like children. He was tall, maybe 6'3", with dark hair graying at the temples and a face that could have been carved from granite. His suit probably cost more than Rena's entire yearly salary. His eyes were the coldest thing she'd ever seen, like looking into a frozen ocean. Those eyes locked onto Rena. His voice was deep, controlled, and absolutely terrifying in its calmness. One of the men nodded. "We traced the 911 call to this address. She's the only one who lives here besides the kid." The man in the expensive suit studied Rena like she was a problem he needed to solve. His hand moved to his waist, and Rena saw the gun holstered there. This was it. This was how she died. On a Tuesday morning in her kitchen, wearing an old college t-shirt and shorts, with her brother 10 feet away. But she'd be damned if she went out crying. Rena lifted her chin, meeting those cold eyes with her one good one. "If you're going to shoot me, at least do it outside. I don't want Leo to see." The man's eyebrow raised slightly. "Interesting reaction. What else should I do? Beg?" "You've already decided what happens next." Rena's voice came out steadier than she felt. Just let my brother go. He's 13. He doesn't know anything." "Papa." The small voice came from behind the wall of men. They parted slightly, and Rena's heart stopped. The little girl from last night stood there, holding the hand of a tall, elegant man. She wore a clean yellow dress now, her curly hair tied back with ribbons. But her eyes, those same frightened eyes, landed on Rena. And suddenly they lit up. "She's the one who saved me. Isabella pulled free and ran straight to Rena, throwing her small arms around her waist. Papa, this is her. The lady from the park. The dangerous man, Papa, went completely still. His expression shifted from cold calculation to something Rena couldn't quite read. You, he said slowly, are the woman who attacked my men. Your men. Rena's stomach dropped. Those were your men? Protective detail, his jaw tightened. They were transferring Isabella to a safe house when rival gang members ambushed the convoy. My men were trying to secure my daughter when you interfered.
Oh.
Oh no. Rena looked down at Isabella, then back at the man. They were dragging her into a van. She was crying. How was I supposed to know? You weren't, he took a step closer. You saw a child in danger, and you acted.
Stupidly.
Recklessly. But you acted, he paused, his eyes scanning her bruised face. My men said they hit you. Yeah, well, I hit them first. Rena immediately regretted the sarcasm. But something unexpected happened. The corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. What's your name? Rena Martinez, she hesitated. And that's my brother, Leo. He's got nothing to do with any of this. The man, Damiano Costa, though Rena didn't know it yet, studied her for a long moment. She could feel him taking her apart with his eyes. The rundown apartment. Her bruised face. The cereal boxes on the counter. Leo's sneakers with holes in the toes. Tell me exactly what happened last night, he said. Everything. Don't leave anything out.
So she did.
Standing there in her kitchen with his daughter hugging her waist and 7 armed men surrounding her, Rena recounted the whole thing. The crying. The men. The car alarm. The punch. She didn't cry. Didn't beg. Didn't try to make herself sound heroic. She just told the truth, plain and simple. When she finished, silence filled the apartment. Damiano exchanged a look with one of his men, a scary guy with a shaved head who nodded slightly. She's telling the truth, the bald man said. Matches Isabella's account. Matches what my men saw before they lost visual. Damiano turned back to Rena. Do you know who I am? No. Do you know what you cost me last night by interfering? Rena's chin lifted again. A guilty conscience. Several of the men tensed. One actually put his hand on his gun. But Damiano just stared at her. Then, shockingly, he laughed. It was a short, rough sound, like he'd forgotten how. You have no idea what you've walked into, Miss Martinez. He crouched down to Isabella's level. Tesoro, is this really the woman who helped you? Yes, Papa, Isabella nodded vigorously. She threw a rock and screamed, and she told me to run. She got hurt because of me. Damiano's expression softened when he looked at his daughter. Just for a moment, the dangerous man disappeared, and Rena saw just a father who'd almost lost his child. Then the walls came back up. He stood, straightening his suit. We need to talk. Privately. The private talk lasted exactly 4 minutes. Damiano made Rena an offer. Protection for her and Leo. A safe place to stay. Money to cover expenses. In exchange, she'd forget everything she saw and never speak about it to anyone. Rena agreed immediately. She wasn't stupid. Whatever world this man lived in, she wanted no part of it. Good, Damiano nodded. My men will check on you periodically. If you're approached by anyone asking questions about last night, you call this number. He handed her a card with nothing but digits on it. Then he left with his army of suits and his daughter, and Rena thought that would be the end of it. She was wrong. That afternoon, Damiano stood in the back room of Lombardi's restaurant, facing 14 of his most trusted men. Carlo Messina, his underboss, sat at the head of the table. The others ranged around it, capos, soldiers, advisors. The people who ran his empire. They'd been discussing the ambush. Who ordered it? How they'd known the transfer route. How many men they needed to kill in response. The Volkov crew is getting bold, Carlo said, lighting a cigar. We hit them back twice as hard. Send a message. Several men nodded. Damiano let them talk. He listened to their plans for retaliation, their strategies, their bloodthirsty eagerness to prove themselves. Then he raised his hand, and the room fell silent instantly. "Before we proceed," he said calmly, "there's another matter." Carlo frowned. "What matter?" "The woman who interfered last night. Rena Martinez. The civilian?" Carlo's lip curled. "What about her? We paid her off, didn't we?" "No," Damiano's voice was quiet but carried absolute authority. "We didn't pay her off." He let the words settle. Every eye in the room was on him now. "From this day forward," Damiano continued, "Rena Martinez and her brother Leo are under my personal protection. Anyone who touches them answers to me directly." The silence that followed was deafening. Carlo's cigar stopped halfway to his mouth. "Boss, with respect, what the hell are you talking about?" "Furthermore," Damiano said, ignoring the question, "Miss Martinez will be moving into the estate. She'll serve as Isabella's personal guardian." Now the room exploded. "You're bringing a civilian into the compound." "Boss, that's insane. We don't even know her. This is a security nightmare." "Enough," Damiano's voice cracked like a whip. Silence again. "My daughter is alive because this woman acted when trained men froze. She took a beating to save a child she didn't know. She asked for nothing, expected nothing." He looked around the table, meeting each man's eyes. "How many of you can say the same?" No one answered. "She's a liability," Carlos said carefully. "A civilian in our world? She'll either get killed or get us killed. That's my decision to make. And if she talks? If she goes to the cops?" Damiano's smile was cold. "Then I'll handle it. But I don't think she will." Carlos stubbed out his cigar with more force than necessary. "You're making a mistake." "Then it's my mistake to make." Damiano straightened his cuffs. "Spread the word. The Martinez family is untouchable. Clear?" A chorus of reluctant "yes, boss" followed. But Damiano saw the looks they exchanged. The doubt. The fear that he was going soft. That grief over his late wife was clouding his judgment. Let them think what they wanted. Isabella was safe. That was all that mattered. That evening, Rena was making mac and cheese when someone knocked on her door. Not pounded. Not broke it down. Just knocked. She opened it to find a young guy in a suit, maybe 25, with nervous eyes. "Miss Martinez? Mr. Costa sent me to inform you that arrangements have been made for you and your brother to relocate to his estate. We'll move you tomorrow morning." Rena blinked. "Excuse me? For your protection. He's assigned you as his daughter's guardian." "I never agreed to that." The young guy shifted uncomfortably. "Mr. Costa doesn't really ask, ma'am. He decides." "Well, he can undecide." Rena crossed her arms. "I appreciate the protection offer, but we're fine here. Tell him thanks, but no thanks." The guy looked like she'd asked him to jump off a bridge. "Ma'am, I really don't think." "I said no." She closed the door on his stunned face. Leo looked up from his phone. "Was that about last night?"
"Yeah."
"Some rich guy thinks he can just move us into his house because I helped his kid." Rena dumped pasta into boiling water. "Like we're pets he can adopt. Is he dangerous?" Rena thought about those cold eyes. The guns. The way grown men went silent when he spoke. "Yeah," she admitted. "But we're not his problem. We stay out of it, we'll be fine." 3 hours later, at 11 p.m., Rena learned exactly how wrong she was. The crash woke her. Glass shattering, followed by shouting. She grabbed the baseball bat from beside her bed and ran to the living room. The window was broken. A brick lay on the floor, paper wrapped around it with rubber bands. Leo stood in his doorway, eyes wide with fear. "What's happening?" Rena grabbed the brick with shaking hands and unwrapped the paper. The message was written in red marker. "Costa's whore dies next." Her blood turned to ice. More shouting outside. Car engines. She ran to the window and saw 3 guys spray painting their building. The words were huge and red. "Costa bitch lives here." She grabbed her phone and dialed the number from the card. Damiano answered on the first ring. "Miss Martinez." "They're here." Her voice shook. They broke my window. Left a note. I don't know what to do. Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone but my men. They'll be there in 4 minutes. How did they find me? Because I made you visible by declaring my protection. His voice was calm, but edged with anger. Not at her. At himself. This is my fault. But I'll fix it. I can't stay here.
No.
You can't. A pause. The offer still stands. My estate. Full protection for you and Leo. Rena looked at her brother, trembling in the doorway, at the brick on her floor, at the hate-filled message. She'd thought she could stay out of Damiano's world, but the moment she'd saved Isabella, she'd already entered it. And now the world was coming for them whether she liked it or not. Okay, she whispered. Okay, we'll come. Good. Pack what you need. My men arrive in 3 minutes. He hung up. Rena stared at the broken window and realized her old life had just ended. Her new one, in a world she didn't understand, under the protection of a man she barely knew, was about to begin. The Costa estate looked like something out of a movie. Rena pressed her face against the SUV window as they drove through iron gates that probably cost more than her entire apartment building. The driveway curved through manicured gardens with fountains and marble statues. The main house, no, mansion, rose 3 stories high with white columns and endless windows that gleamed in the morning sun. Holy shit, Leo whispered beside her. Language, Rena said automatically, but she was thinking the same thing. The SUV stopped at the front entrance where a woman in a crisp gray suit waited. She was maybe 50 with her hair pulled back, so tight it looked painful. Miss Martinez. I'm Mrs. Chun, the head of household staff. Her voice was polite but cold. I'll show you to your quarters. Quarters. Not room. Quarters. Inside, the mansion was even more intimidating. Everything was white marble, dark wood, and expensive-looking art. Their footsteps echoed on the floors. Men in suits stood at every corner, hands clasped in front of them, eyes tracking every movement. It felt less like a home and more like a military base. Mrs. Chun led them up a sweeping staircase to the 2nd floor. You'll be staying in the East Wing. The girl will have the room next to Miss Isabella's. The boy will be 3 doors down. Wait, we're not staying together? Rena asked. Mr. Costa's orders. Miss Isabella specifically requested you be nearby. Mrs. Chun opened a door. This is yours. The room was bigger than Rena's entire apartment. A king-sized bed with silk sheets. A window overlooking the gardens. A private bathroom with a tub that could fit 3 people. It's too much, Rena muttered. Nevertheless, it's yours. Mrs. Chen's expression didn't change. Dinner is at 7. Formal dress code. Your wardrobe has been provided. She gestured to the walk-in closet, then turned to Leo.
Come.
I'll show you your room. Leo shot Rena a nervous look. She nodded, trying to seem confident.
He'd be okay.
This was better than their vandalized apartment.
Safer.
So, why did it feel like a prison? After Mrs. Chin left, Rena sat on the edge of the bed and tried not to cry. Everything felt wrong. Too clean. Too quiet. Too controlled. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. Hello. A small voice came through the door. Rena opened it to find Isabella, still in her yellow dress, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Hi, Rena said, forcing a smile. What's up, kiddo? Did you really come to live here? Isabella's eyes were huge and hopeful. Looks like it. Good, Isabella grabbed Rena's hand. Because I want to show you something. Come on. Before Rena could protest, she was being dragged down the hallway. They passed more silent guards, more expensive art, more evidence of wealth beyond Rena's imagination. Isabella led her to a bright room filled with toys, books, and art supplies. This is my playroom, Isabella announced proudly. Papa had it made for me after Mama died. But I don't like playing alone. She looked up at Rena with those big brown eyes. Will you paint with me? How could anyone say no to that face? Sure, kid. Let's paint. They spent the next hour making a complete mess. Isabella wanted to paint flowers, but they ended up looking more like colorful blobs. Rena made exaggerated attempts to draw a cat that looked more like a potato with whiskers. Isabella laughed so hard she got paint in her hair. For the first time since entering this cold mansion, Rena felt like she could breathe. She didn't notice Damiano watching from the doorway. He stood there silently, observing as his daughter, who'd barely smiled in the 6 months since her mother's death, giggled and chatted with this stranger. Rena wasn't treating Isabella like a Mafia princess. She was treating her like a normal kid, teasing her, joking with her, getting pain on both their faces. When was the last time he'd heard Isabella laugh like that? She's making a mess of the room. Carlo's voice came from behind him. Damiano didn't turn around. Isabella is happy. She's a civilian. Damiano, Carlo stepped closer, voice low. She doesn't understand our world. The rules. The threats. She's going to be a liability. She saved my daughter when trained men failed.
Once.
Through dumb luck, Carlo's jaw tightened. Mark my words, bringing her here is a mistake. She'll either break under pressure or expose us to danger. Probably both. Damiano finally turned to face his underboss. Carlo had been his right hand for 15 years. They'd built this empire together. But right now, looking at his old friend's cold calculation, Damiano felt the distance between them. Your concern is noted, Damiano said quietly. Now get back to work. Carlo's expression hardened. Yes, boss. As he walked away, Damiano heard Isabella's voice drift from the playroom. Rena, can you read me a story next? Papa's always too busy. The words hit harder than any bullet. He was too busy. Too consumed with business, with revenge, with maintaining control. He thought he was protecting Isabella by keeping her in this fortress, surrounded by guards. But he'd forgotten that she needed more than protection. She needed to feel like a kid. And somehow, this broke college dropout with bruises on her face and pain in her hair was giving that back to her. That night at dinner, Rena sat at a table long enough for 20 people. She wore one of the dresses from the closet, simple black, probably cost more than her car, and felt completely out of place. Damiano sat at the head of the table. Isabella sat to his right. Rena was placed to his left. Leo was further down, looking as uncomfortable as Rena felt. 3 servers brought out food that Rena couldn't even pronounce. You don't have to stay if you're uncomfortable, Damiano said quietly. Rena looked up, startled. His cold mask was in place, but something in his eyes seemed almost
considerate.
I'm fine, she lied. You're gripping that fork like a weapon. She glanced down. He was right. She loosened her grip. Old habits. Papa, Isabella piped up. Rena and I painted today. I made flowers, and she made a cat that looked like a potato. Despite himself, Damiano's lips twitched.
A potato cat?
It was abstract, Rena said defensively, and was rewarded with a small sound that might have been a chuckle. For just a moment, the fortress felt a little less cold. But across the table, Mrs. Chen's expression remained disapproving. And somewhere in the mansion, Carlo was already planning how to prove that Rena Martinez didn't belong in their world. By day 4, Rena understood she wasn't welcome. It started with small things. Coffee that mysteriously went missing from the kitchen when she went to make breakfast. Her laundry accidentally mixed with cleaning rags, leaving her clothes stained. Guards who refused to acknowledge her when she said good morning. Mrs. Chun was the worst. She spoke to Rena with icy politeness that somehow felt more insulting than outright rudeness. Miss Martinez, you're late for Miss Isabella's breakfast. Rena checked her phone. It's 7:58. Breakfast is at 8 o'clock. In this household, punctuality means arriving early. Mrs. Chen's smile didn't reach her eyes. Perhaps in your previous circumstances, such standards were unnecessary. The way she said previous circumstances made it sound like Rena had crawled out of a dumpster. Right, Rena said flatly. I'll be sure to arrive before time actually starts. Mrs. Chen's expression froze. Staff members didn't talk back. Ever. But Rena wasn't staff. She wasn't sure what she was, and she'd never been good at biting her tongue. The whispers started during lunch. Rena heard them as she walked past a group of guards. Doesn't belong here. Thinks she's special because the boss. Probably sleeping with him already. That last one made Rena stop dead. She turned around. You want to say that louder? The guards looked at each other. One of them, a thick-necked guy named Marcus, smirked. Just stating facts, sweetheart. Facts? I've been here 3 days. Long enough, Marcus crossed his arms. We all know how this works. Pretty girl shows up, boss gives her special treatment. Tale as old as time. Rena's hands clenched into fists. I'm here because I saved his daughter. That's it. Sure you are, Marcus's smirk widened. Keep telling yourself that. She wanted to punch him.
God, she wanted to punch him so badly.
But she was already on thin ice here. So instead, she walked away, her face burning with humiliation and rage. What she didn't know was that Carlo had started the rumor himself, dropping careful hints to his most loyal men. A word here, a suggestion there. Nothing he could be blamed for directly, but enough to poison the well. By dinner, the entire household was talking about it. That evening, Rena sat in Isabella's room reading her a bedtime story. The little girl had finally fallen asleep halfway through, clutching her stuffed rabbit. Rena carefully marked the page and stood to leave. Damiano was standing in the doorway. She nearly jumped out of her skin. Jesus! How long have you been there? A few minutes, he stepped inside, moving quietly to Isabella's bedside. He brushed a curl from her forehead with surprising gentleness. She seems happy. She's a good kid. She likes you, he looked at Rena, those cold eyes studying her face. That's rare. She hasn't warmed to anyone since her mother died. Rena shifted uncomfortably. I'm sorry about your wife. It was 2 years ago. Cancer, he said it matter-of-factly, but Rena heard the edge underneath. Isabella stopped talking for 6 months. Wouldn't eat. Wouldn't play. I thought I'd lost her too. The vulnerability in his voice surprised her. This wasn't the cold Mafia boss who'd invaded her apartment. This was just a father who'd almost lost everything. She's stronger than you think, Rena said softly. Kids are. So are you. Apparently Damiano's gaze sharpened. I heard about the incident with Marcus today.
Of course he had.
He probably knew everything that happened in this house. It's fine. I handled it. By walking away. What did you want me to do? Fight him? Rena crossed her arms. I'm trying to fit in here, but your people have already decided I don't belong. Half of them think I'm sleeping with you. She regretted the words the moment they left her mouth.
Too honest.
Too blunt. But Damiano didn't look angry. He looked thoughtful. That doesn't bother you? He asked. Of course it bothers me. But what can I do about it? If I defend myself, I look guilty. If I ignore it, it spreads. Rena shook her head. I'm damned either way. Damiano was quiet for a long moment. Then, in my world, everyone wants something. Power. Money. Protection. They lie, manipulate, pretend. He met her eyes.
You don't do any of that.
Because I'm not trying to get anything from you. I'm just trying to keep my brother safe and take care of your daughter. I know something in his expression shifted. That's what makes you dangerous. Dangerous how? Because you're honest. And honesty is a weapon I'm not used to defending against. Rena didn't know what to say to that. The air between them felt charged somehow, like standing too close to a storm. Damiano cleared his throat and stepped back. I'll speak to Marcus. And Mrs. Chun. They'll show you respect. You can't force people to respect me.
No.
But I can make them fear the consequences of disrespecting you. His voice went cold again, the vulnerable father disappearing behind the boss. Which is almost as good. He left without another word, leaving Rena alone with her thoughts and a sleeping child. The next morning, Marcus approached her in the hallway. Miss Martinez, his voice was stiff, formal. I apologize for my comments yesterday. They were inappropriate.
Rena stared at him.
His jaw was clenched so tight she could see the muscle twitching. He clearly hated every word, but fear was written all over his face. What had Damiano said to him? Apology accepted, Rena said carefully. Marcus nodded once and walked away quickly, like he couldn't escape fast enough. Mrs. Chin was waiting in the kitchen with fresh coffee and warm pastries. Your breakfast, Miss Martinez. I hope it's your liking. The smile was still cold, but the edge was gone, replaced by something worse, wariness. They weren't respecting her. They were afraid of crossing Damiano, which meant they'd resent her even more now. Rena took the coffee and wondered how long she could survive in a house full of people who hated her, protected only by the interest of a dangerous man she barely understood. And in his office, Carlo watched through security cameras and smiled.
Perfect.
The rumors were working. Damiano was showing favoritism. The men were noticing. All Carlo had to do now was wait for the right moment to prove that bringing Rena Martinez into their world was Damiano's biggest mistake. Isabella begged for 3 days straight before Damiano finally agreed. Please, Papa. I never get to go anywhere. Rena can come with me. He'd said no twice. But on day 6, watching his daughter's face light up at the possibility of something as simple as visiting a farmer's market, he couldn't refuse again.
Fine.
But you take 6 guards. And you don't leave Rena's side. Which is how Rena found herself at the Chelsea market on a Saturday afternoon, surrounded by more security than the president probably had. Isabella was in heaven. She dragged Rena from stall to stall, pointing at fresh flowers, organic honey, handmade jewelry. For the first time since arriving at the estate, Rena saw the girl act like a normal 8-year-old instead of a Mafia princess. Can we get strawberries? Isabella tugged Rena's hand. The big ones. Sure, kid. Let's get strawberries. The guards maintained a perimeter, 2 in front, 2 behind, 2 scanning the crowd. Marcus was among them, still avoiding eye contact with Rena. Professional but cold. They approached a produce stall overflowing with fruit. The vendor, an elderly man with kind eyes, smiled at Isabella. Hello, young lady. These strawberries are the sweetest in the city. While Isabella chatted with him, Rena scanned the crowd. Force of habit from her old neighborhood, where you always watched her surroundings. Most people looked normal. Families. Couples. Tourists taking photos. Then she saw it. A black van, idling at the market entrance. Nothing unusual about that. Delivery vans came and went all the time. But something about this one made her skin prickle. The windows were too dark. The engine was running, and the driver wore sunglasses despite the overcast sky. She'd seen that same van outside the estate 2 days ago. Rena's heart started racing. Isabella, stay close to me. But I want to look at the flowers. Now, Isabella. The little girl heard something in Rena's voice and moved closer immediately.
Rena caught Marcus's eye.
Something's wrong. He frowned. What? That van. 3 o'clock. I've seen it before. Marcus glanced over, his hand moving toward his jacket. The other guards tensed, following his gaze. The van's side door slid open. Everything happened in slow motion and too fast at the same time. 3 men jumped out, automatic weapons already raised. Rena saw the barrels swing toward the produce stall, toward Isabella, and her body moved before her brain caught up. Get down. She grabbed Isabella and dove behind the produce stall, covering the girl's body with her own, as the world exploded into chaos. Gunfire erupted. Not movie gunfire, real, deafening cracks that made Rena's ears ring. Wood splintered. Glass shattered. People screamed. Stay down. Rena pressed Isabella into the ground behind crates of apples, making herself as big as possible to shield her. The guards returned fire. More gunshots. Someone screamed in pain. Rena couldn't tell if it was one of theirs or the attackers. Isabella was crying, her small hands clutching Rena's shirt. I want my papa. I want my papa. I know, baby. I know. Just stay down. Don't move. A bullet hit the crate next to Rena's head, exploding an apple into chunks. Juice and bits of fruit sprayed across her face. Too close. Way too close. More gunfire. More screaming. Rena could hear Marcus shouting orders, coordinating the guards. The attackers were advancing, trying to flank them. They weren't just shooting randomly.
They were trying to get to Isabella.
Rena's eyes darted around desperately. The stall was providing cover, but if the shooters got closer... She grabbed a wooden crate and dragged it in front of them, adding another layer of protection. "Good girl," she whispered to Isabella. "You're doing so good. Just keep your head down." A guard dropped beside them, the young nervous one who'd come to her apartment that first day. His name was Tommy. Blood spread across his shoulder. "They're coming around the left," he gasped. Rena looked. One of the shooters was indeed circling, trying to get a clear angle on their position. Without thinking, she grabbed a melon from the destroyed produce display and hurled it as hard as she could. It hit the shooter in the face, not enough to hurt him but enough to make him stumble and duck for cover. Marcus used the distraction to take aim and fire. The shooter went down. Then, as suddenly as it started, the gunfire stopped. The attackers retreated to their van, which peeled away with screeching tires. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. Rena stayed frozen over Isabella, not daring to move until Marcus touched her shoulder. "They're gone. You can get up." She looked around. The market was destroyed. Overturned stalls. Shattered glass. Produce scattered everywhere like confetti. 3 guards were wounded, including Tommy. But they were all alive. And Isabella was alive. "Is it over?" Isabella's small voice was muffled against Rena's shirt. "Yes, sweetie. It's over." Isabella started sobbing then, huge racking sobs that shook her whole body. Rena held her tight, rocking slightly, whispering reassurances even though her own hands were shaking. Black SUVs screeched to a halt at the market entrance. Damiano emerged before his driver had even fully stopped, his face a mask of controlled fury. He ran to them, actually ran, dropping to his knees beside Rena and Isabella. "Isabella," his voice cracked. "Baby, are you hurt?" Isabella launched herself into his arms.
"Papa."
"They shot at us. But Rena saved me. She covered me." Damiano's eyes met Rena's over his daughter's head. The gratitude there was overwhelming. And something else. Something that looked almost like fear. "You're hurt," he said, noticing the blood on Rena's arm. She looked down. A piece of flying glass had sliced her forearm. She hadn't even felt it. "It's nothing." "It's not nothing," he stood, still holding Isabella, and turned to his men. "Get them home.
Now.
And find out who those shooters were. I want names and locations within the hour." As they moved toward the SUVs, Marcus approached Damiano. The guard's expression was grudging but honest. "Boss, she saw them before we did. Got Isabella down before the first shot was even fired." If she hadn't, he didn't finish the sentence. Damiano's jaw tightened. He looked at Rena, who was helping Tommy into an SUV despite her own injury. "Make sure everyone knows what happened here today," Damiano said quietly. "Every single person in my organization." Marcus nodded. "Yes, boss." In the SUV, Isabella refused to let go of Rena. She sat between Rena and Damiano, holding both their hands, still crying softly. And for the first time since this nightmare began, Rena saw Damiano's mask completely crack. A single tear rolled down his cheek as he squeezed his daughter's hand. "Thank you," he whispered to Rena. "Thank you for keeping her safe." Rena just nodded, too exhausted and shaken to speak. But she knew something had changed. The whispers would stop now. The doubt would end. She'd proven, twice, that she'd put Isabella's life above her own. Even Carlo couldn't argue with that. Later that night, after Isabella had finally cried herself to sleep and Leo had been told a carefully edited version of events, Rena sat alone in the garden. Her arm was bandaged. The doctor Damiano had insisted on calling had given her painkillers, but she hadn't taken them. She needed to feel everything right now. Needed to process what had happened. She'd almost died today. Isabella had almost died. All because Rena had thrown a rock at a car 6 days ago. You should be resting. Damiano's voice came from behind her. She didn't turn around, just listened to his footsteps on the stone path as he approached. He sat beside her on the bench. Not too close, but close enough that she could smell his cologne. Expensive, subtle. How's Isabella? Rena asked. Finally asleep. She wouldn't let me leave until I promised you'd still be here in the morning, he paused. Will you be? Where else would I go? My apartment's been vandalized. I'm apparently on a hit list now. That's not what I meant.
Rena finally looked at him.
In the moonlight, he looked different. Tired. Older. The mask he always wore had slipped, revealing someone who carried too much weight on his shoulders. Why are you really here? She asked. To thank you. Again, he turned to face her fully. Twice now, you've saved my daughter's life. There's no way I can ever repay that. I don't want repayment. I know. That's what makes you unique. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Everyone in my world wants something. But you just
act.
Without calculation. Without agenda. Maybe I'm just stupid.
No.
You're honest, he met her eyes. And that honesty is more valuable than any weapon in my arsenal. The air between them felt heavy. Not uncomfortable, just charged. Like something was building toward a decision point. I want to offer you something, Damiano said. A formal position. Isabella's personal guardian. Full salary, benefits, education funding for Leo. Legal protection. Everything you need. Rena's chest tightened. I'm not one of your employees. I know. That's why I'm asking, not ordering, he straightened. You've proven your loyalty. Your capability. My men respect you now. Even Carlo can't deny what you did today. This would make your position official. Give you security. And what would it cost me? What do you mean? Rena stood, pacing a few steps away. I've been here 6 days and I barely recognize myself. I don't talk back anymore because I'm afraid of the consequences. I watch what I say, how I dress, how I act. I'm becoming someone else, she turned back to him. If I accept this, if I officially become part of your world, do I lose the rest of who I am? Damiano was quiet for a long moment. My wife asked me something similar once. Before we married. Rena hadn't expected that. She sat back down, listening. Sophia came from a normal family. Teacher parents. Small apartment. When I met her, she was studying art history. A sad smile crossed his face. She knew what I was, what I did, and she asked me the same thing. Will loving you make me disappear? What did you tell her? I told her the truth. That my world is dangerous. That it changes people. That I couldn't promise she'd stay exactly the same. He looked at Rena. But I also promised I'd never ask her to become someone she wasn't. She could paint, teach, argue with me when I was wrong. She was Sophia first, my wife second. Did she regret it?
No.
She died too young, but she died as herself. And that mattered to her. Rena absorbed this. I'm not your wife. I know. But the principle is the same. Damiano shifted to face her directly. Rena, you're already in this world whether you want to be or not. The attack today proved that. The rival families know your face now. They know you're important to Isabella.
To me.
You can't go back to your old life. The words hit like a punch to the gut, because they were true. So, what you're really saying, Rena said quietly, is that I'm trapped.
No.
I'm saying you have a choice in how you survive it. His voice was gentle but firm. You can stay here in limbo, neither staff nor family, with no real authority or protection. Or you can accept the position and let me give you the tools to navigate this world safely. Money, training, legal support, everything you need. And in exchange, you do what you're already doing. Protect Isabella.
Be honest.
Be yourself, he paused. I don't want another employee, Rena. I have plenty of those. What Isabella needs, what I need, is someone who isn't afraid to tell me the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Rena thought about Isabella's face today, pressed against her chest as bullets flew. Thought about Leo, finally safe in a house with good food and clean clothes. Thought about herself, bruised and exhausted, but still standing. I have conditions, she said. Name them. Leo stays completely out of your business. He goes to a good school, makes normal friends, lives a normal life. He doesn't get pulled into this. Agreed. And I stay honest with Isabella. No lying to her, no pretending everything's perfect. She deserves to know the truth about her world, age appropriately. Damiano hesitated on that one, but finally nodded. Agreed. Within reason. And one more thing, Rena met his eyes. If I ever think this is hurting more than helping, if I think staying here is damaging me or Leo, I can leave. You won't stop us. The silence stretched long. Rena half expected him to refuse. Men like Damiano didn't let people walk away. But he surprised her. If you want to leave, you can leave. Both of you, his voice was quiet. I won't stop you. But I will make sure you're protected, wherever you go. The sincerity in his words caught her off guard. This wasn't a negotiation tactic. He meant it. Okay, Rena said softly. Okay, I accept. Something shifted in Damiano's expression. Not quite relief, but close. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. You might regret hiring someone who argues with you. I doubt that. He stood, offering his hand. Welcome to the family, Miss Martinez. She took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and for the first time since this nightmare began, Rena felt like she was making a choice instead of just reacting. One more thing, she said as he turned to leave. Yes. You should spend more time with Isabella. Not just protection detail time.
Real time.
She misses you. Most men would have taken offense at being told how to parent. But Damiano just nodded slowly. You're right. I will. After he left, Rena sat alone in the garden for a while longer. Somewhere above, a light was on in Isabella's window. The girl was probably awake again, afraid of nightmares. Rena stood and headed inside. She had a job to do now. A real one. And for the first time in years, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. Carlo stood in the billiard room, surrounded by 5 of Damiano's most senior lieutenants. Cigar smoke hung thick in the air. He's changing, Carlo said, chalking his cue. You've all seen it. The market attack wasn't her fault, Vincent, one of the capos, argued. She protected the kid. That takes guts.
Sure.
Once Carlo lined up his shot. But now she's on payroll. She sits at his table. She whispers in his ear. He struck the ball hard. When was the last time the boss made a major decision without consulting us first? The men exchanged glances. Last week, Marco, another lieutenant, said slowly. He canceled the Volkov retaliation. Said we needed to focus on protecting what matters. Exactly, Carlo straightened. The Damiano Costa, I know, would have burned their operations to the ground by now. But instead, he's playing defense. Staying home. Spending time in gardens having late-night conversations with a civilian. You think she's manipulating him? Vincent frowned. I think she's a distraction. He can't afford. Carlo poured himself a drink. Look, I get it. She's saved Isabella. We owe her for that. But making her Isabella's official guardian? Giving her access to the compound, to family discussions? That's not gratitude. That's something else. You saying the boss has feelings for her? I'm saying he's going soft. And soft men don't survive in our world. Carlo met each man's eyes. Just think about it. That's all I'm asking. He left the words hanging like poison in the air. That same night, Rena couldn't sleep. Again. She'd been having nightmares since the market attack. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard gunshots and Isabella's screams. So she'd taken to walking the garden paths late at night when the house was quiet. Tonight, she found Damiano already there. He sat on the same bench they'd shared before, staring at a marble fountain that probably cost more than a house. He looked exhausted, still wearing his suit pants and dress shirt, but with the tie gone and sleeves rolled up. Can't sleep either? Rena asked. He glanced up, unsurprised. Insomnia. I've had it for years. Mind if I sit? He gestured to the space beside him. She sat, leaving a respectful distance between them. For a while, neither spoke. They just listened to the fountain and the distant city sounds beyond the estate walls. Sophia used to sit out here, Damiano said suddenly. Every night, around midnight. She'd paint by lamplight. Said the quiet helped her think. Rena waited, sensing he needed to talk. I didn't understand it at first. Why she'd choose to be awake when the world was sleeping. But after she died, he trailed off. Now I get it. The quiet is easier than the nightmares. What was she like? Rena asked softly. Stubborn.
Brilliant.
She saw beauty in everything. A small smile touched his lips. She used to argue with me about business. Not the operations, she never wanted details about that. But the philosophy. She'd say, money without meaning is just numbers, Damiano. What are you building toward? Sounds like she kept you honest. She did, his expression darkened. When she got sick, she made me promise to protect Isabella from this life. Let her be normal, she said. Let her go to a regular school, have regular friends, he laughed bitterly. I built walls instead.
Guards.
Protocols. I kept her safe, but I made her a prisoner. Rena thought about Isabella's joy at the simple market trip. You were scared. Terrified, he looked at her. I still am. Especially after what happened. But she can't live in a fortress forever. She needs more than protection. I know, he paused. You're good for her. You let her be a kid. Someone should. They fell quiet again. Rena pulled her knees up to her chest, trying to decide if she should share something in return. Fair was fair, after all. I dropped out of college to raise Leo, she said finally. Damiano looked at her with genuine interest. What were you studying? Social work. Wanted to help people, she smiled sadly. Ironic, right? I ended up helping, just not the way I planned. What happened? My mom died when Leo was 5. Heart attack. Sudden. My dad checked out after that, just stopped trying. Started drinking. I was 19, halfway through my degree. Rena picked at a thread on her jeans. I came home one day and found Leo alone. 8 years old. No food in the house. Dad passed out on the couch. I knew right then what I had to do. You gave up your future for him. I gave up one future for a different one.
Leo needed me.
That was more important than a degree, she shrugged. I got my GED, worked whatever jobs I could. Made sure he had food, clothes, homework help. He's a good kid. Smart. Deserves better than I can give him. You gave him everything you had. It wasn't enough. We were barely surviving. She looked at the mansion around them. This world you've built, it's scary and dangerous, and I still don't fully understand it. But Leo's safe here. Federal happy. That's all I ever wanted for him. Damiano studied her face in the moonlight. You're stronger than most of my men. I'm just stubborn. There's a difference.
No.
Strength isn't about muscles or guns. It's about making the hard choice and living with it. His voice was quiet but intense. You chose your brother over your dreams. You chose to save Isabella even when you could have walked away. You choose honesty even when lies would be easier. That's real strength. Rena felt her cheeks warm. You're giving me too much credit. I don't think I'm giving you enough. The air between them felt different suddenly. Not uncomfortable, but aware. Like they were both suddenly conscious of how close they sat, how personal this conversation had become. Damiano cleared his throat and stood. It's late. You should rest. Will you be able to? Probably not.
But I'll try, he paused.
Rena. Thank you. For talking. I don't do that often. Neither do I, she stood as well. But it helps. The talking.
Yes.
It does. He walked her to the house entrance, a gentlemanly gesture that seemed natural rather than forced. At the door, they paused. Good night, Damiano. It was the first time she'd used his first name. She saw something flicker in his eyes, surprise, maybe, or pleasure. Good night, Rena. She went inside, heart beating faster than it should. She told herself it was just gratitude, respect. the natural connection between two people who'd shared their pain. But deep down, she knew something was shifting between them. Something that had nothing to do with Isabella or duty or protection. Something that felt dangerous in an entirely different way. In his office, Carlo watched the security feed with a thin smile. The camera angle was poor, but the body language was clear enough. Damiano and Rina, sitting close, talking for over an hour. The way he looked at her.
Perfect.
Carlo picked up his phone and made a call. It's time. Set the meeting. Everything was falling into place. It was pure accident that Rina discovered the truth. She'd been looking for Leo, who'd disappeared after dinner. Mrs. Chun said he'd headed toward the library, but when Rina checked there, she found it empty. So she wandered the maze of corridors in the estate's older wing, servant passages that staff used to move unseen through the house. That's when she heard voices.
Low. Urgent.
Coming from behind a door marked storage. Rina almost kept walking. Whatever business happened in this house, she'd learned to mind her own. But something about those voices made her pause. One of them was Carlo. She pressed herself against the wall, staying in the shadows, and listened. Payment is on schedule, Carlo was saying. But I need more time. Damiano's increased security since the market. Time is running out, Mr. Messina, the second voice had a thick Russian accent. My employer grows impatient. You promised us access to the shipping routes. You promised chaos. Instead, Costa grows stronger. Russian. Rina's blood went cold. The Volkov crew. Damiano's rivals. He's not stronger, Carlo hissed.
He's distracted. Soft.
Exactly as planned. Then why is his daughter still breathing? A pause. When Carlo spoke again, his voice was sharp. The girl was never supposed to die. Just be taken.
Scared.
Create enough panic that Damiano would make mistakes. Show weakness. And yet some civilian interfered. The Russian sounded amused. Your men were sloppy. That wasn't my fault. I didn't plan for a random woman to play hero. Carlo's frustration was clear. But it worked out. Damiano brought her into the house. Now he's spending more time worrying about her than running the business. The other lieutenants are noticing. They're questioning his judgment. Rina's stomach dropped. The original kidnapping attempt. The one where she'd saved Isabella in the park. Carlo had orchestrated it. We paid you well for results, the Russian said coldly. The routes. When do we get them? After Damiano is removed. I'll call a leadership vote, claim he's unfit. With him gone, I take control, and you get everything you want. And if he doesn't go quietly, then he doesn't go at all, the sound of a gun being loaded. But it won't come to that. I've been laying groundwork for months. By the time he realizes what's happening, it'll be too late. Rina's heart hammered so hard, she thought they'd hear it through the door. She needed to move. Needed to warn Damiano. Needed to. The floor creaked under her foot. The voices inside went silent. What was that? The Russian asked. Rina ran. Behind her, the storage room door slammed open. Hey! She sprinted down the corridor, her sneakers slapping against marble. Heavy footsteps pounded after her. Stop her. Rina turned a corner and nearly collided with one of Carlo's men, a huge guy she recognized from the billiard room. He grabbed for her, but she ducked under his arm and kept running. The estate was a maze. She took a left, then a right, trying to remember the way back to the main wing. Behind her, more footsteps. More shouts. She burst through a door and found herself in the kitchen. Two cooks looked up in surprise. Which way to Mr. Costa's office? Rina gasped. One of them pointed. Rina ran, her lungs burning. She could hear the men getting closer. They were faster, knew the house better. She turned another corner, and a hand grabbed her hair, yanking her backward. Pain exploded across her scalp as she was slammed against the wall. The big guy from earlier loomed over her. You shouldn't have been listening, Miss Martinez. He pulled back his fist. Rina stomped on his instep with everything she had, then drove her knee into his groin. He doubled over with a wheeze, and she shoved past him. Damiano! She screamed as loud as she could. Damiano! More men appeared ahead of her. Carlo's men. 3 of them, blocking the corridor. She was trapped. The big guy behind her had recovered, murder in his eyes. The 3 ahead moved closer, boxing her in. Carlo wants to talk to you, one of them said. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Damiano? Rena screamed again. Carlo's working with the Volkovs. A hand clamped over her mouth. Arms wrapped around her, lifting her off the ground. She kicked and fought, but there were too many of them. Then a gunshot cracked through the air. Everyone froze. Damiano stood at the end of the corridor, gun raised, flanked by Marcus and 4 other guards. His face was absolutely terrifying, cold fury carved in stone.
Let
her
go.
The men holding Rena hesitated. They were Carlo's, but Damiano was still the boss. Still the man who controlled everything. Slowly, they released her. Rena stumbled forward, gasping. Her mouth was bleeding where they'd hit her. Her shoulder screamed in pain. But she ran to Damiano, words tumbling out in a desperate rush. Carlo, he's in the storage room in the East Wing, meeting with Russians, Volkov's people. He planned Isabella's kidnapping. He's trying to take over. He's going to kill you. Damiano caught her as she nearly collapsed, one arm steadying her while his gun never wavered from the men. Marcus, he said quietly, take these men into custody.
Now.
Boss, we were just.
Now.
Marcus and the guards moved in. Carlo's men didn't resist. They knew when they were beaten. Damiano finally lowered his gun and focused on Rena. She was shaking, bruised, barely holding herself together. Where is he? Damiano's voice was deadly calm. East Wing. Storage room. He's with a Russian guy. They were talking about shipping routes and removing you, and she grabbed his arm. Damiano, he planned everything. The kidnapping. Bringing me here. He wanted you distracted. Something dark and dangerous flashed across Damiano's face. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Lock down the estate. Nobody leaves. Find Carlo Messina and bring him to the meeting room. He paused.
Alive.
I want him alive. He hung up and turned to Rena. Can you walk?
Yeah. I'm okay.
No, you're not. He touched her chin gently, examining her split lip. But you will be. His eyes met hers, and in them she saw something that made her chest tight. You could have run. Hidden. Saved yourself. Isabella's in this house. Leo's in this house. I wasn't going to let him. I know. He pulled her into a brief, fierce hug. You did good. You probably just saved all our lives. When he released her, the vulnerable man was gone. The boss was back.
Come with me, he said.
You're going to tell me everything you heard. Every word. Every detail. As they walked toward the meeting room, Rena's legs shook, but she kept moving. She'd crossed a line tonight. There was no going back now. She wasn't just Isabella's guardian anymore. She was part of this war. And Carlo was about to learn what happened to people who threatened Damiano Costa's family. The meeting room felt like a tomb. Every lieutenant, every capo, every ranking member of the Costa organization sat around the massive table. 15 men who controlled millions of dollars and answered to one man. That man stood at the head of the table, silent and still as death itself. Damiano hadn't said a word since everyone assembled. He just waited, hands clasped behind his back, while guards dragged Carlo in and forced him into a chair. Carlo's Russian contact had already fled. They'd find him later. Right now, all eyes were on the underboss who'd sat at Damiano's right hand for 15 years. Rena stood against the wall, flanked by Marcus. Her lip was swollen, her shoulder ached, but Damiano had insisted she be present. You discovered it, he'd said. You tell them. Damiano, Carlo started, his voice smooth and reasonable. Whatever lies she's been telling you. Miss Martinez, Damiano's voice cut through the air like a blade. Tell them what you heard. Every eye turned to Rena. She stepped forward, forcing her voice to stay steady. I heard Carlo meeting with someone from the Volkov organization in the East Wing storage room. They discussed payment for access to shipping routes. Carlo admitted he orchestrated Isabella's kidnapping attempt in the park, not to take her, but to scare her, create panic, make Damiano look weak. Murmurs erupted around the table. That's insane, Carlo said, laughing. You're going to believe some civilian over me? I've been loyal to this family for. She also heard you planning to call a leadership vote, Damiano said quietly. To remove me, claim I'm unfit. Carlo's smile faltered for just a second. The Russian asked when you deliver the routes. You said after I was removed. Damiano took a step closer. And if I didn't go quietly, I wouldn't go at all. Your words, Carlo. Not hers. She's lying. Carlo stood, slamming his hands on the table. Can't you see what she's doing? She's manipulating you, turning you against your own men. This is exactly what I warned everyone about. Check his phone, Rena said. He mentioned payments. Encrypted calls. The evidence is there. Vincent, the tech-savvy capo, looked at Damiano. Boss. Damiano nodded. Vincent stood and moved toward Carlo. Your phone.
Now.
This is ridiculous. You can't just.
Your
Phone.
Carlo's jaw clenched.
Slowly, he pulled out his phone and slammed it on the table.
Fine.
You won't find anything. Vincent took it, fingers flying across the screen. The room fell silent except for the soft tapping. Every second felt like an hour. Then Vincent's face went white. Boss, he said quietly. Encrypted messaging app. Hidden folder. Calls to a Russian number. Multiple transfers to an offshore account. He looked up, stunned. It's all here. The room exploded. You betrayed us. How long has this been going on? You put the boss's daughter in danger. Enough. Damiano's voice cut through the chaos like a gunshot. Silence fell instantly. He walked slowly around the table toward Carlo. Each step deliberate, measured, terrifying in its control. You were my brother, Damiano said softly. I trusted you with everything. My business, my family, my daughter's life. Damiano, I can explain. You put my 8-year-old daughter in the hands of kidnappers to make me look weak. It was just supposed to scare her. I never meant for. Damiano's fist connected with Carlo's jaw. The crack echoed through the room. Carlo hit the floor hard, blood streaming from his mouth. You used my grief against me. My wife's death. You waited until I was vulnerable and you struck. Damiano grabbed Carlo by the collar, hauling him to his feet. How long have you been planning this? 2 years, Carlo spat blood. 2 years watching you become a shadow of what you were. 2 years watching this empire weaken because you couldn't let go of a dead woman. The words hung in the air like poison. Damiano's expression didn't change. He simply let go of Carlo, reached to his waist, and drew his gun. No, wait, Damiano. We can work this out. The gunshot was deafening in the enclosed space. Carlo dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Blood pooled beneath him, spreading across the expensive marble floor. His eyes stared at nothing. No one moved. No one breathed. Damiano holstered his gun and turned to face his men. His face was spattered with blood, but his voice was perfectly calm. Let this be clear. Betrayal ends one way. Always. He looked around the table. Carlo thought I was weak because I chose to protect my family. Because I brought a civilian into our world. Because I listened to someone who had no agenda except saving my daughter's life. He gestured to Rena, who stood frozen against the wall. She did what none of you had the courage to do. She protected what matters. His eyes swept the room. She saw danger and acted. Twice she saved Isabella. Tonight, she risked her life to warn me of a threat that lived in my own house. A threat that none of you, my most trusted men, detected. The lieutenants looked at each other, shame written on their faces. From this moment forward, Miss Martinez's word carries the same weight as any capo in this room. You will respect her. You will listen to her. You will protect her as you would protect me, he paused. Anyone who has a problem with that can join Carlo on the floor. Silence. Then Vincent stood. No problem, boss. One by one, the others stood as well. No problem, boss. Marcus stepped forward. Miss Martinez, you have my loyalty. The others echoed the sentiment, each man nodding to Rena with genuine respect. The hostility was gone. The doubt was erased. She'd proven herself in blood and fire. Damiano turned to her. You should go check on Isabella. Make sure she slept through this. Rena nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. She walked past Carlo's body without looking down, through the room full of dangerous men who now saw her as one of their own. As she reached the door, she heard Damiano's voice one more time. And someone clean this up. I want no trace of him by morning. The message was clear. Carlo Messina had never existed. Traitors didn't deserve to be remembered. Rena closed the door behind her and leaned against the wall, shaking. She'd just watched a man die. Watched Damiano pull the trigger, without hesitation. This was his world. Brutal, unforgiving, absolute. And somehow, impossibly, she was part of it now. The house felt different after Carlo's death. Not immediately, the first day. Everyone moved like they were walking through a minefield. But by day 10, Rena noticed the change. Guards nodded to her in hallways. Mrs. Chun brought her coffee, without the icy undertones. Staff asked her opinion on Isabella's schedule. Damiano had restructured everything. Vincent was promoted to underboss. 3 of Carlo's most loyal men were quietly removed, transferred to other operations, which probably meant something Rena didn't want to know about. New protocols were established. New chains of command. And somehow, impossibly, Rena found herself in the middle of it all. Miss Martinez, what time does Isabella prefer lunch? Mrs. Chun asked one morning. She likes eating around noon, but she's usually hungry by 11:30. Maybe have snacks ready. Of course. I'll adjust the kitchen schedule.
Just like that. No argument. No condescensión.
It was unsettling how quickly she'd gone from outsider to whatever she was now. Leo was thriving. That's what struck Rena most during those quiet days. Her brother had enrolled in a private school nearby, one with actual funding, good teachers, and a robotics club that made his eyes light up. He came home every day talking about friends, projects, things he was learning. One afternoon, she found him in the library doing homework with Isabella. They were arguing about math problems, both of them bent over a textbook. No, it's 17, not 7. Isabella insisted. You forgot to carry the one. Leo pointed at the page.
Oh.
You're right, Isabella erased furiously. They were like real siblings. Bickering, helping each other, comfortable. When had Leo last looked this happy? When had he last had the luxury of just being a kid? You okay? Leo asked, noticing her watching.
Yeah, just.
Proud of you. He rolled his eyes, embarrassed, but she saw his smile. This was what she'd wanted. What she'd worked 3 jobs to barely provide. And now he had it, safety, education, a future. Maybe being part of Damiano's world wasn't so terrible after all. That evening, Damiano knocked on her door. Do you have a moment? He asked.
Sure.
What's up? I want to walk you and Leo through the new security measures. Make sure you understand the protocols. She expected him to delegate it to Marcus or Vincent, but he insisted on doing it himself, leading both of them through the estate room by room. This panel controls the lockdown system, he explained in the hallway outside their rooms. If you ever hear this alarm, he demonstrated a high-pitched beep. Get to Isabella immediately and take her to the safe room. 3rd floor, east corner. The door looks like a bookshelf. Got it, Rena said, memorizing every detail. These phones, he handed them each a sleek device, direct line to my security team. Press the red button, and you get an immediate armed response. No matter where you are. Leo examined the phone with teenager fascination. This is like spy stuff. It's serious stuff. Damiano corrected gently. After what happened with Carlo, I'm not taking chances. You're both targets now because you're close to Isabella. To me. The way he said, to me, made Rena's chest tighten. They continued the walkthrough. Exit routes. Safe zones. Emergency protocols. Damiano was thorough, patient, answering every question. When Leo asked about the security cameras, Damiano actually showed him the control room, explaining the system in detail. It was such a father thing to do. Not the Mafia boss instructing his employees, but a protective man making sure the people he cared about were safe. After Leo went to bed, Rena and Damiano ended up in the garden again. It was becoming their place, where they could talk without masks, without roles. "Thank you," Rena said, "for taking the time with Leo. You didn't have to do all that yourself." "I wanted to." Damiano sat on their usual bench. "He's a good kid. Smart. You did well raising him. I just tried not to screw him up too badly. You did more than that. You gave him values. Strength. Hope." He paused. "Those are harder to teach than people think." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The fountain burbled. Stars emerged one by one overhead. "Can I ask you something?" Rena said finally. "Always. Do you ever regret it? This life?" Damiano considered the question seriously. "Every day. But it's the only life I know. My father built this empire. I inherited it at 23 when he was killed. I could have walked away, let it collapse. But then what happens to the people who depend on us? The families we protect? The communities we support?" He shook his head. "It's not all violence and crime, Rena. There's loyalty here.
Honor.
Rules that matter. Even after Carlo? Especially after Carlo. He broke those rules. He paid the price." Damiano looked at her. "Does it bother you? What you saw?" "Yes," she admitted. "But I understand why it happened. He would have killed you. Killed Isabella. Destroyed everything. And that makes it acceptable? I don't know if acceptable is the right word. But necessary? Yeah, I think so." Damiano smiled slightly. "You're adapting to this world better than I expected." "I'm not sure if that's a compliment." "It is." He shifted to face her more directly. "Rena, I need you to understand something. You're not just Isabella's guardian. You've become," he searched for the word, "important. To the organization.
To me.
The men respect you. They listen to you. That's power. Real power. I don't want power. I know. That's what makes you trustworthy." His eyes were intense in the moonlight. "But power finds people whether they want it or not. The question is what you do with it." "What do you think I should do with it?" "Keep doing what you're doing.
Be honest.
Protect Isabella. Challenge me when I'm wrong." He smiled. "You're good at that last part." She laughed softly. "Someone has to keep you humble." "Humble? Is that what we're calling it?" They were sitting closer than before. When had that happened? Rena could smell his cologne, see the faint lines around his eyes, the silver threading through his dark hair. He was handsome. She'd noticed before, but kept that observation locked away. Now, in the quiet of the garden with defenses lowered, it was harder to ignore. "I should go," she said, standing quickly. "Early morning tomorrow." If Damiano noticed her sudden retreat, he didn't comment. "Of course. Sleep well, Rena." "You too, Damiano." She walked back to the house, heart beating too fast, thoughts spinning. This was dangerous territory. He was her employer, her protector, the father of the child she cared for. Getting emotionally involved would be a disaster. But as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she couldn't stop thinking about the way he'd looked at her. The gentle way he'd taught Leo about security. The quiet conversations that made her feel seen in a way she hadn't felt in years. She was in trouble. The kind of trouble that had nothing to do with bullets or betrayals. And everything to do with falling for a man she couldn't have. Day 12 arrived quietly.
No emergencies. No betrayals. No gunfire.
Just a normal Saturday morning where Isabella insisted on making pancakes and Leo pretended he didn't know how to flip them just to make her laugh. Rena watched from the kitchen doorway, coffee in hand, as the two kids turned breakfast into a flower-covered disaster. Mrs. Chun hovered nearby, torn between horror at the mess and amusement at Isabella's joy. "I think you're supposed to put the batter in the pan, not on the floor," Leo deadpanned. "It slipped." Isabella giggled, trying to scoop it up. "That's what you said about the last three." This was what a home should feel like. That evening, Damiano did something unprecedented. He canceled his meetings, ignored his phone, and requested a private family dinner. Just the four of them, no staff, no guards hovering, no business. The small dining room felt intimate compared to the formal one they usually used. Candles flickered on the table. The meal was simple: pasta, salad, garlic bread. Isabella had insisted on helping cook, so everything was slightly imperfect and absolutely perfect. And then Mr. Torres said my robot design was the best in class. Leo was talking with his hands, animated in a way Rena rarely saw. "He thinks I could enter it in the state competition." "That's incredible," Damiano said genuinely. "You should absolutely do it." "Really?" "It costs money for the entry fee and materials." "Consider it handled," Damiano waved off the concern. "Your talent shouldn't be limited by budget." Leo's face lit up. "Thanks, Mr. Costa." "Damiano," he corrected gently. "Just Damiano." The gesture wasn't lost on Rena. He was including Leo, making him family, not just a ward under protection. Isabella launched into a story about art class, complete with dramatic reenactments that made everyone laugh. She was so different from the quiet, scared girl Rena had first met. Now she was vibrant, silly, confident. "And Rena, you have to see the painting I made. It's a potato cat." "Oh no," Rena groaned. "I'll never live that down. Never," Isabella declared triumphantly. Damiano chuckled, a real laugh, warm and unguarded. Rena caught his eye across the table, and something passed between them. An understanding. A shared recognition of what they'd built here. After dinner, Isabella begged for a card game. They played for over an hour, arguing about rules, accusing each other of cheating, laughing until their sides hurt. Leo won 3 times in a row, which Isabella insisted was statistically impossible and probably illegal. When the kids finally went to bed, Leo to his room, Isabella to hers, Rena walked with Damiano back downstairs. "Thank you for tonight," she said softly. "That was really nice." "It was perfect." He paused at the bottom of the stairs. "I can't remember the last time this house felt like a home. Before Sophia? Even before that, sometimes. My father ruled this place like a fortress. Cold. Strategic. Every dinner was a negotiation. Every conversation had an angle. He looked around the mansion with new eyes. But tonight was just family. Rena's heart squeezed. "Is that what we are? Family?" Damiano met her gaze directly. "What else would you call it?" Before she could answer, Vincent appeared from the hallway. "Boss, sorry to interrupt. Quick question about tomorrow's meeting. Can it wait?" Vincent glanced between them, reading the room. "Actually, yes. It can wait." "Sorry," he retreated quickly. But the moment was broken. Damiano's phone buzzed with messages, and reality came crashing back. He was still the boss of a criminal empire. She was still the girl who'd stumbled into this world by accident. "I should let you work," Rena said. "Rena, wait," he caught her hand, stopping her. "This thing between us." "There's nothing between us," she said quickly. Too quickly. His expression said he didn't believe her. "I'm not good at this. Relationships. Honesty outside of business. But I want you to know," he struggled for words. "You've changed everything. Not just for Isabella. For me. For this house. You remind us what matters." "Damiano. Let me finish." His grip on her hand tightened slightly. "I don't know what this is. I don't know where it goes. But I know I don't want to lose it. Lose you." Rena's breath caught. This was real. He was actually saying it. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of this. Of you. Of caring too much and losing it all." "Me too." His thumb traced circles on her hand. "But maybe that's okay. Maybe fear means it matters." They stood in the quiet hallway, the weight of everything unsaid hanging between them. Neither moved to close the distance, but neither let go either. Above them, Isabella's light turned off. Leo's music played softly through his door. The house settled into its nighttime rhythms, guards changing shifts, security systems humming. This strange, dangerous, beautiful life they'd built. Later, Vincent found Damiano in his office reviewing security reports. Question, boss. That woman upstairs. Is she just the girl who saved Isabella? Damiano set down the report, staring at nothing for a long moment. Then he smiled, small, genuine, almost surprised by his own answer.
No.
She's the woman who reminded this house what loyalty looks like, what family means, what's worth protecting. He looked at Vincent. She's the heart of everything now, and I'll defend that with my life. Vincent nodded slowly. Good to know, boss. After he left, Damiano walked to the window, overlooking the garden. Somewhere in this massive house, Rena was probably awake, thinking the same thoughts he was. Isabella slept safely. Leo dreamed of robotics competitions. His empire ran efficiently under new leadership. Everything had changed because one broke college dropout had thrown a rock at a car and refused to look away from a crying child. The Damiano Costa who'd existed 2 weeks ago, cold, isolated, drowning in grief and paranoia, was gone. In his place stood a man who remembered why he'd built all this in the first place. Not for power, not for money, for family,
For loyalty.
for love. And somehow, against all odds, he'd found all three again in the last person he'd expected. Outside, the city glittered with lights. Inside, his daughter slept peacefully. And somewhere between the fortress and the warmth, Damiano Costa finally lowered his guard and let himself hope.